Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you're in for a treat today on the BoomBastiCAST. You have myself, Mathew. You have my cohort over here, the great Alexander the Hawk, doing it big, flexing their muscles for you. Um, Hulk Hogan style, rest in pizzle. We have a great guest for you this evening who spans decades of entertaining your eyeballs. Really cool guy. The great Randall Carver from Taxi, from we're talking Man on the Moon. We're talking there's so much good stuff. We got Midnight Cowboy, you know what I mean? We got Murphy's Law, Norm Macdonald, Norm. We've got There Will Be Blood, the great Paul Thomas Anderson and Daniel Day-Lewis vehicle. Masterpiece, you know what I mean? This gentleman was a part of a lot of really cool stuff, worked with a lot of really cool people, and is a really cool person himself. And it's a pleasure to have him on. Before Alex could even say it, I'm gonna let everybody know Alex was the person who found this guest. So now, I have to legally, I have to say that whenever Alex finds a guest, I legally have to say it. But no, Alex is killing it. And Alex stumbled upon this dude, and it was a great stumble upon because it was a great episode that you're about to see. Yeah, I was very excited to sit down and talk to Randall because or I think we can call him Randy at this point.
Yeah, I think
We
we
can
can
call
call
him
it
Randy
Randy.
at this point, all bets are off. We're all friends now. This is how we work it at the cast. But I was very excited to talk to him. He's been a part of so many cool things. Like I said, Taxi is a show that I've loved since I was knee high to a pissant. You know how that saying is. Um, There Will Be Blood, masterpiece. I just recently watched Midnight Cowboy for the first time. Thanks to the Criterion Collection half off sale. Bada boom, bada bing. Ratso, which is a performance I want to see Alexander the Hawk portray. Once we got enough subscribers on the Patreon to be able to flip $1 million movie, we're gonna do a reboot of Midnight Cowboy with me as Joe Buck and Alexander Hawk as Ratso. We'll see that's our goal to bring these.
Hey, I'm walking here. I'm
That's
walking here.
You got it, dude. You got it. Um, Superb film. Heard a lot about that and a lot of other cool stuff. Randy, awesome dude. A lot of knowledge, a lot of cool projects. Like I said, worked with a lot of cool people and just kind of knows his stuff. Very down to earth, a real person. We love that type of stuff here at the Boom. Do you want to say anything before we pop into this episode?
Nothing much other than it was great having him on, and it was great, talking to him about his career and all of his experiences. It was a lot of fun.
Hell yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, for the first time ever, welcome to the BoomBastiCast, the great Randall Carver. All right, Randall, but we're gonna call you Randy. You cool with Randy? You said, right? I heard some Randy going around.
Yeah, there's Randy.
All
My
right,
mother named me Randall, so everybody called me Randy.
that makes sense.
Yeah, but then I changed my name to. I mean, I didn't change my name. My professional name is Randall Carver, and so I I've just always gone by Randy.
Yeah, I like that.
I,
It's
I sometimes think I wish I'd started my career as a Randy instead of a Randall.
well, Randy's another name for being happy too, I believe, right? Or excited or something like
Yeah,
that.
I think it's excited about something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's what all
I've
of us.
been pretty excited about that for a long time.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, you when you do the professional name, like both of us up here too. I go by Mathew, but
Uh-huh.
people call me Matt, of course, and Alex and Alexander. It's
Yeah,
yeah, it's one of them things.
Alexander, that's good.
It's a good. It can be a woman or a man's name. That's what's so good
Yeah,
about Alexander.
yeah,
You
that's
know.
right. That's right. I
Well,
know an Alex.
yeah. Well, Randy, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. You know what I
It's a
mean?
pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
We've been looking forward to it. You know what I mean? Big fans. You know what I'm saying?
Good, 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 good.
Heck yeah. All right. So, where did you kind of start with catching like the acting bug or the bug for entertaining?
Well, when I was a little kid, I was trying to learn to read. I mean, like a real little kid.
Yeah, yeah.
And I learned to read by holding my mother's scripts because she would do plays in this little town that we lived in, Canadian, Texas. And it was up at the top part of the panhandle, up in the upper right-hand corner, almost Oklahoma when it goes like that. Canadian's right about there. So
Mm.
it was a way I learned to read. It was to hold the scripts and make sure she had her lines right. And so that's helped me learn to read. And so she would always take me to rehearsals and stuff and sit me in the high school gymnasium. That was the theater, and we would do that. And I learned a lot of stuff, and I even got to be in a play, and I had two lines, and I got the first one and didn't get the second one.
Well,
And we only had one performance. See, everybody in the little town could all go see it. We didn't have two. There wasn't enough potential for an audience, with just a little small town. But I got on stage and forgot my lines, and I never, I'd like to say I never forgot my lines again, but I always kind of forget something.
it's a lot.
Yeah. There's probably some learning deficiency that I have or reading deficiency that I didn't ever have diagnosed. So it's just in there. And I tell you, I was doing a murder she wrote, and I got to the last word in my day, and it was sunglasses.
Okay.
And she'd left her sunglasses, and I'd found them, but I couldn't remember the word sunglasses. I had them in my hand. I got, had a wonderful, and I got right to the end of it, and I blanked on it. It was like I had them in my hands. I couldn't think of the word. It was very odd. And so she noticed that right off the bat because she was an executive producer, and they had to do another take, and it was another 30 seconds of people walking back and forth and then me. So it was a complicated shot, but it wasn't a complicated shot, but I ruined it. So I'm sure that if they could have, they'd have taken that out of my salary. The look she got on her face when I got right to the end of it, and it was going so good, and then it was like, hey,
Yeah.
crash.
That's Angela Lansbury.
Yes, Miss
Miss
Lansbury.
Lansbury. How is she to work with?
Well, she was exacting. She's
Yeah.
one of these. You memorize every punctuation.
Right, right.
When you learn to be an actor, you learn to try to not follow the punctuation because the punctuation was put in by the stage manager when they were actually doing the first production of it. And so that's why they put all that stuff in there, but it didn't need to be. So I just go over that.
Yeah.
I get all the words right, but and the feeling and everything, but I don't change anything. No, you just don't mess with that.
Yeah. We'll see. Yeah, some people are like it can give you room for improv, and some people can, got to be word for word. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yes, and I know they're timing every single second. Now, every time they say roll them, action, they're counting every single second to make it just fit in right into where the whole mosaic of the editing and so a little bit can like mess up a lot.
Yeah, that's true. You never really think about stuff like that because you figure you get like if you're shooting a feature film, if it
Yeah,
runs long, you could always you can go a little late or a little more than an hour and a half, or you have an hour and a half to fill. But when you're doing like you got to fit like half hour, which I think are boiled down to what, like 22 or 20 minutes due to commercials,
probably.
the
Yeah.
episodic
Uh-huh.
adventures. Yeah. So you got to really be able to fit in there and be able to keep momentum. So yeah, I never really thought about the importance and probably like the difficulty of keeping everything within that time frame. You know what I mean?
And it has to match.
Yeah,
That's
for
another.
sure. Yeah, the I write dialogue and I forget it. I think it's just like it's a nerve. Like that's what I tell people about acting, and not that I act really.
Huh?
This guy over here, but it's like you anybody can sit in their basement and read the dialogue against the wall and be like and do a scene in a mirror, but like once you get in front of a crew and other actors, it's like that's when the pressure comes in, and then you add, you're on
Yeah.
trying to stay on schedule and stuff like that. And if you have a flub up, you're like, oh no, man, like are people angry at me because we're doing another take? You know what I mean? It all
Uh-huh.
adds up.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It all adds up. It can be
Yeah,
too long. It seems like if it's too short, they can make it longer, but they can't make it short.
for
Yeah.
sure, for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
one thing I wanted to jump in since we just talked about Angela Lansbury with Murder She Wrote. How is she compared to like Lucille Ball when you were on the episode of Here's Lucy?
that's really interesting. I had a really good day with week with Lucille Ball and Andy Griffith on that show because
nice.
he was the guest star, and it was a Wayward Boys Home thing, and I was in doing stuff. It, but anyhow, yeah, they're very comparable. Like I went into the Lucy show and I got there a little early and they said going in there. And so I went into this sound stage and there was a little man sitting at the end of the table. And then everybody else started filtering in and everything. I couldn't figure out, where's Lucy and everything. And so they started and the little old man down at the end of the thing picked up her script and started reading. It was Lucy. But but there she was just, her hair was gray and, all pulled back and everything. And
Yeah.
then whenever we shot, she was Lucy. She had came with all the stuff and everything, and it was just like seeing a complete makeover,
Yeah, yeah.
because she was like in the morning smoking her cigarettes and doing all this stuff. And yeah, come over here, and then it's Lucy. She comes to her line and it's Lucille Ball. But before that, she was like kind of helping direct. She was sort of directing herself and everything. So, because she
Yeah.
was a one man band or one lady band, I guess you could say that. She was, uh, she was good, and she
Oh
was
yeah.
really great with everybody, whether you were a grip or a gopher or actor or a director or something. She was the main person there for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like iconic. Lucy, like I when I was a kid, like you'd catch the Lucy, like the Lucy show, the black and white Lucy show
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Legendary.
Yes. Yes.
I
Yeah. But I wasn't that far back. I was in color. So.
That's right. The Andy Griffith. If I just watched Face in the Crowd for the first time, maybe a couple months back, and Andy Griffith is like the sheriff of Mayberry,
Maybe. Yeah.
where he's like a nice, wholesome guy, and then Face in the Crowd, he's kind of like a psycho guy. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes.
Overpowered, but overrun by power, and very cool flick. How's
Yes.
Andy Griffith to be around? Is friendly
Well,
and
he's kind of like both. He's both. He's a happy-go-lucky guy, and then he's a guy that like
yeah,
he he's kind of he was kind of tough to work with because a lot of times on the soundstage, grips and guys and talkings, this, that, blah, blah, and they just let their language go crappy, you know.
yeah.
And so he doesn't like any of that naughty talk on his set. And he, fired a couple of guys.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they got fired because they couldn't clean up their language. And I thought that was a little, if there's kids around, I can see that. But
Yeah,
like everybody else is a grown up and it's a kind of an adult thing making a movie or a TV show or something. There's
yeah.
all kinds of people. So you just have to be real careful about who you're around whenever you try to make up lines and stuff like that. To try, you try to keep things on a higher plane instead of,
Right.
you know, if you were doing a Scorsese show, you'd probably get away with it.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
an Andy Griffith show.
I was it more like like words, like curses, or just like the subject matter they were talking about?
Probably both. I
Yeah,
wasn't there, but that was what I heard back
yeah,
then. That he was, when on his show, everything was on the up and up because they had kids there, and I can see why.
yeah,
Just don't do that because it throws a whole other level in there that doesn't need to be there. Where little kids are,
yeah.
so you can't have some guy over, hey, you mother,
Right, right.
fix that light. They don't need all that stuff. I kind of agree with him on one thing, but I think a guy should be warned at least a half a dozen or at least two or three times, before you.
I think Andy
He needed a
Griffith.
talking to first. That's what he did.
Yeah. Andy Griffith needs credit for making sure Ron Howard didn't turn out like Corey Feldman, you know what I mean?
Exactly. That is exactly. Well, I think his Ron Howard's family were pretty great.
Oh
His
yeah.
dad was is an actor too and everything. So, but they were from Oklahoma, I think, somewhere like that. But originally, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Did you eventually take in your mom's footsteps and start doing like theater and plays in high school before?
Actually, I was in grade school. I was in the second grade when I did my first play, and that's the one I had a little bit in. They wrote it in for me, and I had a couple of lines, and I had two lines. I got the first one, and the last one was kind of waffling at the end, and so one of them filled out the what I was trying to say. They filled it in, but
Okay.
it was smooth. The audience didn't realize it, so that was nice because it was covered.
Yeah.
He was
No
the
harm, no foul.
superintendent of the schools there. You end up with a bunch of teachers being actors because they get pressed into service. We're gonna do a play, so you're gonna be in it. Oh
Yeah.
no. No.
And then you kept with from that point on?
Yes, I did. I was about seven, and it scared the bejesus out of me, and so I didn't get on the stage next for about 7 years, and I was at a West Texas State University, and they had a summer program there where you could stay in the dormitories and work on a play, and it was The Man That Came to Dinner, and it would had like a ton of characters, and everybody got to be in it, and I was in it, and we had one performance only, and that was at the end of I think it was a two week period, and they had this whole thing fully mounted and everything, and it was great. And that was my first thing with a full-fledged play with a real theater and not a high school auditorium. And I got the part of Bert Jefferson. He comes in drunk at the beginning of the third act, and I never associated that. I just saw drunk people on TV, so
Yeah.
I just did it like I saw people do it on TV or in the movies, and a crowd started laughing. I couldn't figure out what was going on. It started on one side of the stage, and then or theater, and then it went over clip to the other side, and it was amazing. It was amazing. The laughter, and I was just thought, oh wow, that's great. I got a real charge out of having people enjoy what I was doing and laughing.
Yeah.
When you think about it, laughter is an involuntary, unconscious movement
Hmm.
if it's right, you know,
That's
and
right.
that's what it was happening. And so I wanted some more of that. That's why I majored in drama and theater at West Texas State University, and that's where I got my first professional job too, because they had some people there in Canyon, Texas, had decided that they wanted to put on a play about the panhandle of Texas Texas and put it into a outdoor musical drama because we had a Paladura Canyon, which is the biggest canyon in Texas, and it's a big long thing, and they have Paladura State Park there, and it was about 20 miles from the school, and we'd drive out there and go into this canyon and rehearse. We rehearsed for about 2 or 3 weeks, and then we put on a play for about 60 performances the rest of the summer. And I got a part in that, and that was one of my first professional things. I think they were paying me $5 or $10 a week, something like that. It was just, really, really informative, and it was really exciting to be involved in. It was a big performance, and we had the background. It was a canyon wall, and we had a 700 or 800 foot cliff right here, and the cowboy would ride a horse up there with an American flag, and that's how they would start, with a giant spotlight. And they had they had a guy that was a big techie, and he was worth a bundle of money, a big rancher's kid, and he'd like just put tons of money into the production value, the the music, the lights, the changes, everything was all top notch. So we got really good background in that. And so I was at West Texas State University, and I was doing that, and that was really wonderful. I thought, gee, this is great. If I could do that'd be really good. I would like a career like that, a life like that. So I kind of paid attention to it in more of a business way. Like I wanted to do this as for real, and just to see if I could do it.
Yeah.
And eventually, after I got out of the service and everything, I did do that, and I had some success at it and made a living at it for 20 years or so, 25 years. And so that felt really good, because if you look at it, professionals, what professional actors like 20 or 30 years ago, they'd come out here and they'd stay here till they were about 35. And if they haven't made it big time by the time they're 35, they go, because the parts are not written like that.
Right.
And so that was really interesting to me, and I got involved in it. And I thought, well, if I can do it, if I can get a day job and make $250, and I could get one of those every other week or something, or every month, once a month, maybe I could maybe hang on and make a living there. But it took me a while. But my first job I got right out of college. I was graduated in May, and I was commissioned an officer in the Army at that time, and I was due to go into do 2-year hitch for that, because this was right before the lottery came in on terms of civil service or draft.
Yeah.
So that was very important.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you for your service too. You know what I mean?
Oh, thank you. Oh, that was really an odd story. I mean, here I'd been I graduated from college and everything, and I read a little blurb in the paper. They said part of Dustin Hoffman's new movie will be filmed in Big Springs, Texas, The Midnight Cowboy.
Hell yeah, yeah.
So I put on my thinking cap, and I got in touch with the people at the Chamber of Commerce, and they put me in touch with the people at the Ramada Inn, and I called them, and they had the names, dates, and times that anybody was coming in to check in the hotel there at the Ramada Inn. That's where they were staying. And so I went there, and I saw an entry people, and they gave me my picture. They had come in from New York or LA, and I'd meet them in the lobby of the Ramada Inn. After they signed in, I'd give them my picture and my resume and stuff I'd done. And I said, if there's anything I can do, please let me know. I'd love to have a chance at this. And I said, okay. And so they called me and said, John Schlesinger, who had won a Academy Award for Darling, Julie Christie. And so they approached him, and he said that he didn't think I looked right. So, but the person I was working had met me first. He said, "But you can come anyway. They're just going to have a bunch of guys come stand out by the swimming pool here at the Ramada Inn, and John Schlesinger and the producer Jerry Hillman are going to come through and meet everybody and see who they want to pick." And I said, "Okay, great." So I showed up and I stopped and I bought a used, very, very used Levi jacket from a Mexican clothing store on the other side of the tracks. So I found a good piece of thing. So I wore that. And sure enough, I got there and there were about 35 of us. And they needed about a half a dozen to a dozen guys. And they started coming down the receiving line. I was about 8 people down from it. And so I put my Levi, my Mexican used jacket, real used jacket, and my cowboy hat. So, the stuff small town Texas kids always have,
Yeah.
boots and jeans and stuff. And so he came down the aisle and he was visiting with people and they were talking back to him and everything. And he got to me and I just kind of yep and noped him, and just kind of didn't make eye contact and kind of, just
You're in
a
it. Yeah.
small town punk.
Yeah, you're in it.
Yeah, I had a lot of experience about that. Small town Texas punk. Yeah, I had a big experience, a lot of experience. So I put a little bit of that attitude into it, and so they went on down. And I thought, well, that was that. And then he stopped and he came back. John Schlesinger did, and he says, "I want you and John Voight to go stand over there at the edge of the pool there, and I want right over here." And I want to get some pictures of you. They got a photographer there. So they put me and John together. And John was kind of a little standoffish because he was this little small town punk.
Yeah.
And so he didn't know what to think about it. So I knew he was kind of leery. So I just thought I'd let him in on the joke. And I said, "I'm so glad this is my first professional audition. I just graduated from college with a degree in speech and theater." And he says, what do you mean? I said, "Yeah, I graduated with a degree in speech with an emphasis in theater." He says, "Wait a minute, you're an actor." I said, "Yeah." And he says, "You've got don't say a word. You've got everybody." He says, I'm going to, now that you've gotten, he says, now that you're going to get this, I think, I'll just bring it up at dinner. And I'll tell them that you picked somebody today, and what'd you get? He says, "Oh, we got a real good guy." And he says, "Well, that guy's an actor." They looked at each other and they said, "Oh, no." He says, yeah, you picked the actor."
Yeah.
I had one line with Jennifer Salt, who was dating John Voight at the time, and Jennifer Salt, it was Waldo Salt, who wrote the script for Midnight Cowboy. So I spent an afternoon on top of her in the back of a movie theater, and we became friends or acquainted. We became better acquainted than we were before.
Yeah. So the writer's daughter ended up playing that character?
Yeah,
That's
Crazy Annie.
Yeah.
Annie. When I went to Korea, I got shipped out to Korea. I was a tank platoon leader. I had 5 tanks and 20 guys over there for a year on the DMZ, and that was another story too. But I won't go into that. But anyhow, that's what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
So anyhow, I was overseas, and I wanted to call my cousin, who was an actress in Los Angeles, and I said, "Would you please?" I sent John Voight a letter, and I said, "Would you please tell my cousin that I'm going to be calling her on a certain day at a certain time, California time, because we couldn't get a line down to Seoul. It was difficult. But we get it from Seoul to the States. It was easy, but we were up in the, front lines. So we didn't have that. We had to get on the register to get a phone call appointment and then be there and make the phone call. I had to go to a certain place and call, and then they would get us down to Seoul and then take the message or the phone call to Los Angeles from there. So I called her and I said, hi. And she says, hi, I've been waiting for your call. And I said, oh, I'm glad you got the message. She says, you know who gave me that message? I said, yeah. She said, John Voight called me here at the house and everything. And we just couldn't imagine that. So I said, yeah, yeah. So we had a nice visit. And we've stayed in touch with each other for all these years. I see him about once every 4 or 5 years. And last time I saw him, it was a group over at the Academy, TV Academy, and there was a group of people, and they were all trying to get his attention and everything. And then a guy took care of him, started to walk him away. And I said, hey, John, Randall Carver. And he took about a step and a half, and he turned back and says, Randy? He comes over and makes a big thing. Good to see you and all that. And they're shooting pictures of all this. And so it was great that he, after years, he remembered that. And I thought it was so great. He got that. I think he was nominated or won the Academy Award for a film. And he was playing a veteran who was a crippled veteran, coming to terms with that. And so I felt like I had a little something to do with it.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, John Voight's great, especially in Midnight Cowboy. I watched Midnight Cowboy for the first time within the last like 4 months or so.
Uh-huh.
And him as Joe Buck, like that naive, city slicker coming to the big city.
Yeah.
Superb. And even Hoffman as Ratso, it's such like a weird little, almost weaselly character, you know what I mean? But it's great, Hoffman played it great,
Yeah, yeah. He was kind of a rat weasel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of a what's those possums? That's possums. You see them?
Yeah.
They play dead and they look awful at it too, because their teeth they go.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great flick for anybody out there listening that's never seen Midnight Cowboy. Check that out.
Oh yeah, if you haven't seen that, you got a real thrill, and it's the first movie that was Best Picture Academy Award that was X-rated.
Yeah.
Yeah. When that came out, and I told Mom and Dad, I said, now listen here, it's kind of a grown-up movie. You're not used to these. But they said they went and they saw friends of theirs they lived in Hertford at that time. And so we had friends and that had lived that were from New York originally before they came, and they said that is exactly how it is. It's just like that, because Mom and Dad were kind of concerned about that.
Sure.
I told them, I said, it's kind of risque and there might be some nudity in there. And there was, I gave them about half a butt shot. So
yeah.
They were doing that. They kept pulling my pants down. I kept hiking them up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, making a movie like that in the late 60s,
Yeah.
it's because you hear like nowadays or in the last 20 years or so, a movie gets an X, it's like a death sentence for the film. You know what I mean? That's why it's so interesting that film got that rating and still was able to win an Academy Award. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. I think they did have to do a little bit of editing, but not much at all to take out the naked stuff, But
yeah,
it was done. It was responsibly done. It wasn't, it was very thoughtful process. It wasn't just just all do this, it wasn't that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where I was, they had this old house that they found out there, and it was a big old house, and it was vacant, and the only thing that lived there was rattlesnakes, and there were about several dozen of them that lived out there. So they had to hire snake guys to go out there before we got there and go through the whole house and beat the thing and make a racket and get all the snakes out of there so we could shoot.
Wow.
And so they did, and it was they said it was cleared of snakes. took them a day to do that, and we were shooting at night, and so we were hopefully there wasn't any snakes around.
I was gonna say, were you worried at all about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's some people that didn't have a lot of clothes on, and so
Right.
I was I was worried that they might be injured, although I wasn't that close to them for much of it. I just kind of ran through frame and did some other stuff that you can't tell who's did it, but that's all right.
Yeah,
It was great. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe every single thing I was in was used. They didn't cut. There wasn't an inch of that was taken away. They used
yeah.
every single thing that I was involved in.
How
Guess
would
if
yeah,
you knew who you were looking for, you could tell in a second.
yeah.
Yes, yeah.
How was Schlesinger as a director like on set? Is he a hands-on director or is he like a pre-production and then let you do what you want to do or what type
Well,
of deal?
he comes in with what he has to offer, and so that's what he does. And he was a documentary filmmaker before he became, he still, I think, maybe did documentaries later on in his
Yeah.
career. But yeah, he was a good guy. I, I liked him. He was a fella that was engaging.
Yeah.
He didn't just say you go there, you go there, but he was a gentleman about things.
Right.
I mean, like if you're shooting a film about this kind of material, you've got to have a certain amount of uh, decorum
Yeah.
and manners and style in order to know what's what. Because
Tact. Yeah.
because you're going from like some raw stuff to having a cup of coffee.
That make
Thank you.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense that he came from that documentary background because like it was perfect having that knowledge of the documentary style is perfect for that film because it's kind of you're following Joe Buck on this journey
Yeah,
into this new world that is kind of documentary style, you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's
But I loved being in that film. It was like it's great. Even today, I have people that say, "You were on Taxi, but you were in the Midnight Cowboy." Tell
yeah,
me,
yeah. Yeah.
because like a lot of people were just starting to. Well, I don't know. I guess everybody's a little older than me, younger than me now, but then it was,
It's the same. I think The Exorcist came out around the same time as Midnight Cowboy. And William
yeah,
Friedkin also had like that documentary approach. That's why I think that movie was so successful because but with both films, you think you're really watching something real. You know what I mean? The you brought up Taxi. We're both huge fans of Taxi. Comfort food. I throw that on all the time.
oh, I'm glad.
You know what I mean? How'd that kind of come about? How'd you get involved with Taxi?
Oh my gosh. My Taxi experience.
Yeah,
Well, it was quite a deal. There's a lot of interesting people involved in that, and I just really loved being in it. It was really good.
yeah,
Uh, they came in, and I got an audition. My agent, which doesn't normally send me out for anything, had a young sub agent under him, and he didn't know to say no. So he went through channels the guy and gave them the casting director my picture and everything, and then they said they had me in, and I auditioned, and I thought it went real well. It's about a guy that gets that flies to New York to join this girl he had met somewhere else, and he was said, "I'll come and see you in New York," and she said, "Okay, come see." So he was up there, and he's uh, Alex drives him up to this place, and he goes over and knocks on the door, and the girl's there, and she says she didn't remember him, and then she does remember, and she says she can't see you right now, can't see me right now, as a friend that's moved in, and so goodbye. So I just ended up stuck in the cab, and I don't. He takes me to the cab place, the garage
Yeah.
to get change because I didn't have change for a 50. And so that's how I got on there. And then they just kind of befriended me.
It be being on like a regular on a big show like Taxi. I mean, you definitely have the oomph. Before, I should have asked before is like being a part of Midnight Cowboy with it being an Academy Award winning film. Did that give you a boost? Were you more sought after? Did you get jobs easier after that, or was it just still grinding it out a little bit in
No,
audition wise?
when I did my Midnight Cowboy, I had a couple of years to do in the Army, so they had a lot of time to consider me.
Yeah.
I mean, when it was released in the United States, if I was in showbiz then, I would have got probably got some stuff. But
Yeah.
what happened is, I when I got out of there, the first job I got in California was a motion picture, leading a motion picture called Time to Run.
Okay.
And I was there were three or four leads, and I was the second one. But it was the character was the movie was about my character. You know, I was a young college kid and having trouble with the family, and I leave college and then hit the road, and my family's got is well to do, and so I just leave and take my old van and start bumming around and seeing what I can see and just getting out of town, you know.
Hmm.
So, and it was a film done by Worldwide Pictures, which was the film arm of the Billy Graham Evangelistic
Okay.
Association. And it was a really fine organization, and everybody knew they were top-notch people, regular showbiz people, but people that had that kind of belief system in their lives. And so that was fine for me, and I was really glad to do that. I mean, my first film was Midnight Cowboy, which was X. Then the next film is a Billy Graham film. So, I can pretty much cover the basis
Okay.
of what you
Yeah.
might need in an actor.
Yeah.
So if people knew what they were looking at when they read the credits, they would get that. But you know, showbiz types, they're all over the place in terms of belief systems.
That's it. That's it. One of my favorite, because I like some spiritually based films too. There was a there was a trilogy or a quadrilogy released around that time. The Thief in the Night. You ever see that?
I didn't see it, but I heard of that. Yes.
I remember in church we watched that on Wednesday night church, and I've
Uh-huh.
always been like a fan of horror films and stuff. So like watching that was like one of my favorite church experiences because it's scary. It's like very scary because it's all about tribulations,
Oh
Mark
yes, yes, yeah, yeah.
Mark of the Beast,
Uh-huh.
which
Yeah.
if anybody out there, if you know Revelations, like the book of Revelations in the Bible is like horrifying, you know what I mean? Yeah.
It's not going to be good.
No, no. It's
Well, it'll be good at the end, but the tribulation and all that's going to be a drag.
oh yeah, like doing
Some of us think that it's going to we're going to be gone before that, but I think I don't know. It doesn't seem like the way he works.
yeah. Well, the rapture is nice. You get raptured away, you're kind of good, but then if you don't get raptured, which if I remember correctly, I think even like people that are believers, some of them I think are even left behind. I think I could be wrong.
I think they're just left behind to teach them a
To
lesson.
teach, but that's still a hard lesson to have to teach because they got to go through all that, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
There's a
exactly.
lot there. Yeah, it's good.
There's a lot of tribulation, and you see the news today, and it's just like you almost want to pull your hair out and say, "Wake up, wake up!"
Yeah, yeah, dude. It's yeah, I've always wanted to like do some type of reboot of that because I remember just being a young teenager watching that and being like, "Whoa," because it's anxiety because like the girl it follows a girl who everybody's raptured away. She's left behind. They bring in the mark of the beast. She refuses to get it. So now like the government's out to get her, and like her family and friends turn on her. And then it ends beautifully. It's like beautifully dark, I should say,
Yeah.
where she has to go up to the she got to get the guillotine, which is like horrifying. You're watching this like, what's going on? But yeah, very interesting stuff.
What's the name of it?
It's called A Thief in the Night.
The Thief in the Night. Yeah, of
It's a
course. Like that's from the Bible, is it?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
in
yeah.
the night, you're not going to see it
There's
coming.
I think there's 3 or 4 films. There's A Thief in the Night, there's The Prodigal Son, there's I think one of them's called The Market. I bought them. I own all 4 of them. I thought there was 3, but there was 4. I bought the DVDs off eBay, so they're kind of like somebody made them at home type deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's one guy that did all of them, like Charles Donaldson or something like that. He passed away, unfortunately. But they're all like it's they're like biblical stuff, you know what I mean? So it's not
Okay.
like a story he created. He just kind of took it and ran with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
They did. I think Nick Cage did a Left Behind movie
Yeah, he did.
a
Oh, he
couple
did.
years, yeah, which was weird. I didn't see that coming either. That was more surprising than the guillotine. And yeah, so like, but yeah, the faith-based films are huge right now too. I know you do a lot of work with your church, right? I think I heard
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about like doing like a faith-based film or something like that?
Oh, yeah. I did. That's what I got started in.
Oh, okay,
I mean, Time to Run. I was a full-length feature film,
for sure.
and several. So yeah. I even did another one called More Than a Carpenter. It's based on Josh McDowell's book,
Yeah,
and it was really good. And we shot it over in Israel, and it was very good. The girl Susan Madigan was in it, and me, and
yeah,
there was another 2 fellas in it. It was a small cast, and but it made the play the run on TBN.
yeah.
They rerun it. As a matter of fact, we were flipping channels when one evening with my lady that became my wife, and we were watching TV, and she says she was just flipping channels, and it hit on this TV, this shot, and it's a shot of a guy uh, laying in bed, and he's getting up, and it's and it was me, and she was, but she said, because I was kind of, she said, "Wow, look at this guy," because they thought, and I said,
Yeah.
because I was wearing tight pants and everything, and I'd just gotten out of bed. She says, "Geez," and I said, "You know who that guy is?" And she says, "No." I said, "That's me." She said, "What?" She, she looked. She said, "Oh my gosh, yes, yes."
Yeah.
She says, "I thought that was you, but I didn't. I didn't really know what I was looking at."
Yeah. How would you feel about doing like one nowadays? Getting back into it.
I'd love it. I'd
You
love
know
it.
what I mean?
I
Yeah, that'd be
absolutely
cool.
love it. I love doing things that come that are personal.
For
That's my
sure.
heart. I'm touching my heart. That's a personal thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I dig on it. Well, so we'll jump back to Taxi real quick.
Oh
Love
yeah.
Taxi. Um,
Hmm.
join the cast. We know how you got in there.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
how's
Well,
that ensemble work? I mean, there's a lot of like heavyweight, just about everybody in there is like heavyweight actor, I feel, comedy
they
actor,
can.
of
Yes,
course.
a
Yeah.
couple of them came from Broadway or and Mary Lou Henner is a great actress. She's
Yeah.
really fine and devoted to the method or whatever she's into uh, on how to work, and she's a very good person to work with. I enjoyed being her. She and I were in class together. We were both in Harvey Limbeck's class. He had thing for about 20, 30 years there. That was a group, and he taught them comedy improv and stuff, and he had a great background, and we lost him really too soon. He was in his 50s when he passed.
Yeah.
But he was just a really fine guy, and it was, he was a heartwarming kind of guy.
Mm.
Made you feel good.
Well, you
And,
need more of them, yeah.
huh?
Definitely need more of those type of people.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Rest in peace. Um, Kaufman, I know you've done a few things, talking about Andy Kaufman.
Yeah, I loved Andy. He was a great guy. I got along with him great, but Jeff Conaway and Tony Danza didn't much like him because they thought he was stealing all their thunder, and they didn't have any thunder
he
like
was,
him,
yeah.
for sure.
I was gonna say, yeah. The
Yeah.
how's Andy is like behind the scenes, he feels like he's always doing the Andy Kaufman thing. Was there ever like downtime when he was just like regular Andy, or was he always kind of pulling, some antics, if you will?
No, he didn't pull any antics until it was like showtime.
Yeah.
He kept all his antics to that, except for when he got fired. The Tony Clifton.
Tony Clifton story.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's what happened. It was a very unusual day because on Friday, Ed Weinberger, who was the honcho that talked to all the actors all the time, and was the executive producer, creator of Taxi, and he was there and would work with people and to get exactly what it was that he was wanting. When I was on Taxi, I was doing my role, and I noticed that they were having a hard time figuring out what to do with my guy. I mean, I was it was the second or third episode, and they didn't that we shot, and that was one where I saw that they're not coming up with stuff for my guy. There hadn't been the thought that they created a character, but they didn't put the dialogue. They didn't have anybody write anything. They couldn't get writers interested in writing about a guy that had just come to New York from the Midwest, small town guy, and they didn't put any new guy in New York stuff there.
Right. Strange.
I mean, just think about it. If you go move to New York, and how do you get the lights turned on? Where is the shopping? How does things work in New York City?
Yeah.
They put him in the cab. He didn't get lost one time.
Yeah, there's a lot of material. That could be material for its own sitcom, its own show. You know what I mean?
That could have been the crux of the whole thing, but they were involved in. He didn't have that mentality. They needed characters that practically wrote themselves.
Yeah.
And I was working under the delusion that the word came first. And so they weren't coming up with the words for my character. So by the time Andy Kaufman got married on the show, he married Rita Taggart. She was a friend of mine. And I was sitting there, and I had not seen this new character. He wasn't a regular. He was just a guy that was going to marry him, Reverend Jim.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there in the front row, and we were going through rehearsals and stuff. And I sat there, and I was on the front row, and I was looking at him, and he was going like, and he had like stuff around his mouth, and he was just like he was like that guy. I mean, I thought, good grief, they got a real guy here.
Yeah.
This is something else. And I was watching him, and I said, I think my role just flashed before my eyes.
Yeah.
I thought, if they got this guy in, what in the world are they going to do with John Burns now? They got a guy that they can bring in, and he's there, you know. They didn't have to write him. He was already there when he was there. So I was thinking, well, there goes my career. And this was about 3 or 4, probably it's about 7 or 8 episodes into it. And I was looked up at him and I had a thought. I says, you know, if I was these guys, I'd put this sucker in and take me out because they're not coming up with. So at the end of the season, nothing was said. Or see you next summer, and you know, ta-da. And then I got called into Ed Weinberger's office, and he says, we've decided to let you go, Randy, because we didn't have any writers that could write any stuff for you to do. And weird writer-driven things is how we work. And so, and I said, I understand. You know, I understand because they're just not. You got so much time and so many people to write for, and one of them's too light, and this guy walks in with his character already made.
Yeah.
You know, because that's what he does, and so that's was fine, and I understood that. You know, and then the Weinberger says, you know, of course this is really, really bad. It seems seemingly bad for you, but he says, I'll tell you if you take this well and everything and just go away, then I'll get you in something else that's coming down the road. I'll make it up to you, and I'll do it. So it was about a couple of years later, and I got a call. They want you to come in, and it was the same casting director that casted Taxi, and he knew what a horrible deal I got on that, and they pulled some shenanigans a little bit on how much they were going to pay me, 2,000 or 3,000 a week, that kind of thing, and then they welched on that. So I saw what was going on, and so I was kind of glad to get out of there on one thing. And another thing, I just golden opportunity, and it wasn't made the best of, and I felt really short-sheeted by that. And but sure enough, 2 years later, I auditioned for a job, and the casting director that casted Taxi had me in for it. It was a new series. It's done by Norman Steinberg, who was a co-writer with Mel Brooks.
Okay.
Yeah, Mel Brooks, and
Oh yeah.
So he wrote a thing. It was about Armed Forces Television Vietnam, and so it was that kind of a situation. And I'd been in the service 2 years and all this other stuff, and 3 years military school, 4 years ROTC, so I know stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And so I got cast in this, and it was like a shaved tail little lieutenant that thinks he knew everything. You know, it's kind of a Frank Burns character. And so, matter of fact, one guy that worked on MASH says, you did a better Frank Burns than he did in that show. So it was really good. And Larry Fishburne did it.
Okay.
Or Laurence Fishburne, excuse me.
Yeah.
And AC Weary and Erica Wells and Joby Baker. And Phil Hartman was coming in occasionally just to do a line now and then, that kind of thing. And so he was starting to work. And so what happened with that? We shot 6 shows, and we were opening the series was starting. So we were shooting at Warner Brothers. So they cleared out this whole stage and everything, and it was a big thing. Joe Cocker did the soundtrack, sang the opening song, "I Want to Go Home." It really wailed, and it showed choppers coming in and letting troops off, and a guy with a microphone trying to get, you know, stuff down. And you see all this stuff, "I want to go home," and it was just such a thing, such a thing, and it was like, and everybody was going with it, and the people in there was like hundreds of people sitting in the soundstage that they had decked out with screens, everything, and then we saw it, and it was great, and it's exciting and everything, and everything worked, and the two main characters worked, and all the others were. It was really great, and then it at the end of it had the end credits, and then they were started to get interrupted, and they came on the network and it says, "Ladies and gentlemen, we have an announcement to make. We had lost 8 men trying to rescue the hostages in Iran, and they had that crash in the desert.
Yeah,
Lost some lives and everything, and that had interrupted the final credits.
Hmm.
Absolutely the worst time.
Yeah.
Worst time ever to put out a new TV series, a comedy about war. And then that's what was starting to happen over there. So it was off. They shot 6 of them. They didn't even write another script after that, I guess.
Really?
Yeah, it was something. It was something that I had never been a part of. Everybody was just looking at each other like, what in the world is this for real?
Yeah.
It was real. And that's why it was gone.
Hmm.
So if you can have good luck in show business, then you can have bad luck too.
Most definitely, yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah. So Laurence, what's funny is I heard somebody recently talking about how you don't call him Larry. Larry's against the rules in his book or something. Lawrence is what you're supposed to call Mr.
Yeah, that's
Fishburne.
right. Yeah, of course I knew him when he was Larry.
Yeah. Now he's that.
Lawrence. See, he did the reverse thing.
Yeah.
He was Larry. I was Randall, and now I wanted to be Randy, and he was Lawrence, and he didn't want to be called, Larry. He wanted to be called Lawrence.
We call him Larry here. It's okay for us.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah. How is he? He seems like a dude who's very serious in the craft.
Oh, I got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was a real nice guy.
Yeah.
He wasn't that way on the set. He wasn't aloof or anything like that. But I started asking, I said, what did you were in Apocalypse Now for like 2 or 3 years. And he was like 14 or 15.
Yeah, very young. Yeah.
And I said, you anything interesting? She says, oh yeah, one time some natives were going to take us and Marlon Brando, and so they took us out to have a little thing, and they fed us some horrible food out by some campfire, and they were Aborigine kind of type people stuff over there. And then he said, he said, then at the end of it, it got quiet, and we were out, and they just had campfire and everything, and there's presently the show, the entertainment came on, and a fellow walks out, and he comes out, and there's a coil of rope, and he takes it and he throws it up in the air, and it stays there. And then he climbs up the top of the roof, top of the outdoors. He gets up the top and vanishes.
Wow.
Well, Larry Fishburne is just like, and he's sitting next to Marlon Brando. And Marlon leans to him, he says, it's a trick.
There was a lot of hallucinogenics, I think, on the behind the scenes of Apocalypse.
It might have been.
Yeah.
But he told that story.
That's a great story.
Yeah. I loved it. I'm stealing Lawrence's movie stories.
We don't need to have him on the show now. We're gonna scratch him out.
Kelly Randy said hi.
Yeah. And Phil Hartman was also a part of the show too. Very tragic ending for Phil Hartman. Super talented, funny guy.
Yeah, that was really amazing. I was over at Universal Studios and I saw him. and we weren't we knew each other, but I don't think he'd remember me by this time because it was years later. And I saw him over at Universal, and I almost went over to say hi to him, but I figured he probably wouldn't remember me because it had been years and stuff, but everything. And then it was like 2 weeks later that incident happened.
Yeah.
And I was just really saddened. I mean, there's times, we get attached to showbiz types too.
Yeah.
Being in the business, we have the people that we, good things happening or bad things. But that was just so sad and so unneeded, unnecessary. It was an unnecessary incident.
Yeah. And it was like,
I always felt real bad about that for him and the families too.
oh yeah. I mean, horrifying, very abrupt too. It's like it was such a shocker, you know what I mean? Just kind of came
Yes,
out of nowhere.
you didn't realize that what kind of a life he had, what kind of a person that Phil was. It's strange.
He was like tortured. It's the weird thing of like you see the people on the screen and they're happy and they're making people laugh and then they go home and like they're miserable. Like the Robin Williams thing. It's like Robin, what you think of Robin Williams and you're like, my God, dude, like one of like the nicest people from what it seems, always down to help people out, trying to make people smile because he knows what it's like not to smile. And the
Yeah,
poor
yeah.
guy's living such a dark life, you know what I mean? It's horrible.
Well, what he had was Lewy body
Lewy body dementia or something like
dementia,
that.
and it's not related to anything. It just comes in and devastates whatever's going on. So it was just it was not a win-win or a win. It was just a win-lose situation.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I don't know if his lifestyle or whatever, but I know he had a couple of children. Now they're adult aged and everything. And I was so hard. See, I knew him real well. We both studied with Harvey Limbeck together.
Okay.
And when we were shooting Taxi, they were started shooting Mork and Mindy the same week.
Okay.
We started Taxi, and we were one sound stage apart from each other. And so I was talking. They were having trouble on his show, Mork and Mindy, because the father of Mindy wasn't working out. There was a fellow that had a different take on things. Graham Jarvis, he was in Mary Hartman. And so Graham was doing one thing and then it wasn't working out. And so Robin was saying, oh my God, we're having to recast one of the leads. And I'm really upset about it because I don't know what it's going to do to the integrity of the way that things we're working in everything. So I said, just don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, Robin. This is such a big thing that if it doesn't work out, you'll have something come down the pike. Surely, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't worry about it. And he went fine, and I got kicked off my show. So, so talk about the blind leading the sighted.
I mean, true words have never been spoken from yourself, though. I mean, Mork and Mindy is great in itself, but he went so far beyond Mork and Mindy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. And he had done a kind of a well, it's kind of Robin in that was almost like Foreign Man.
Yeah.
For Andy. There was
For Andy, yeah.
There was a thing there.
So how was it when they brought you for Man on the Moon when Jim Carrey, embodied Andy Kaufman? How was that seeing, Jim Carrey's take on Andy and so forth?
I was so happy when I got included in that because it was I played myself, and so that was really exciting. I enjoyed that. Going on the set was just amazing. Going on the set, it was over at Universal. Of course, we shot the show Paramount.
Yeah.
So I'd been in the garage there for a year, but then we were over at this other place. It did. I was thinking, well, maybe they used pieces of sets or ideas that it's like going to be Andy time, taxi time. So they came on there and they did such an incredible job of reproducing the set for Taxi, the garage set. Everything, I don't care if it's a grease spot on and it was a big set. Every single thing was identical.
Yeah.
It wasn't a reproduction. It was the original. They put it back. They did it. I could not believe they could. I went over and was looking at stuff, and it was like graffiti that was written on the back of something, and it was still there on that. I mean, that finite thing. It was just. It was like being in being there, and see, one thing about Andy and I met him at the Improv about 2 or 3 weeks after I saw him on Saturday Night Live when he did Here I Come to Save the Day, Mighty Mouse Playhouse. And all the kids used to do that. We'd all sing it like, so he was just doing something he did as a little kid. And something all of us little kids had done the same thing. Yeah. Here I come to save the day. It's a mighty mouse is on this way. Yeah. So that was fun. So that was really great to see, and to be in that situation again, and it was great. It was really good. And so see, Buffalo Bob or Buffalo Bill, I believe he was, who had come up with Howdy Doody and was the major creator. He passed away during the shooting of that show, and so Jim Carrey as Andy. Had a Howdy Doody doll, and he led from the main gate. He led a group of people who were following him, and Andy Kaufman through the street. Here I come to, all this stuff. Yeah. And then he finished up at the sound stage where we were, and we went in, and it was on the garage set. And there was a picture there taken, and it was a picture of Jim Carrey holding up Howdy Doody in front of the audience and everything. And I'm off over to the side. Here's the picture of that day. You can see that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There's Andy Kaufman. And then this is me. Right here.
Oh, that's awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. And DeVito.
That's me right here. That's me right there. And there's Jim Carrey, and he's holding Howdy Doody up. And we're being reverent.
Was there
look? This is my reverent look.
Yeah. And he was Andy, like the whole time he was on set, he just was Kaufman, right? He never really broke character to be Jim. Or
Andy, when he's not doing anything, is just stands there. He doesn't do anything. Yeah. I mean, if he has something to do, he'll do it. But if he doesn't, he just stands there.
I like that.
Yeah.
Were you in the funeral scene in Man on the Moon when everybody's
yes.
So I read Bob Zamuda wrote a book a couple years back called The Truth Finally, and he said something about how like originally when Andy passed away, I guess not a lot of people from Taxi went to the wake because I think there was like a weird riff, like there was something weird going on, or like for whatever reason people didn't go. And he said that DeVito staged, like he wanted to make all the Taxi people were in the film at that moment, and that was like their time to actually grieve, like because they supposedly didn't go to the real wake, but like that's why it was all done up, and it was a very like emotional time for a lot of people at the wake because they never really at the movie.
During the shot, I was in so those shots. It was it was really sad.
Yeah.
No, I was over at the Improv, and this was before the end for Andy, and I was there, and Andy was there, and he was sitting at a table, and he had, and there were like 4 or 5 places there, and he says he's waiting for Bob Zamuda and his agent, who was can't think of his name. Ah,
I forget it. Yeah,
I
I
can't.
forget the agent's name too. Um,
But he was a really good guy,
yeah.
and he was there, and so anyhow, Andy says, I said hi, Andy. He says, oh hey, Randy, how you doing? I said, okay, how you doing? He says, well, I'm not so doing so good. I said, really? What's that? And he says, well, I'm going to be meet with Bob Zamuda and his other writer and this guy that's the I can't think of his name, who was the producer.
Yeah, DeVito played him in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Shapiro, maybe? Yeah.
and so he says, I just got back from over Cedar Sinai. I've got lung cancer, and it's real bad. Oh no, I'm sorry to hear that. He says, yeah, it's it's not good, and so I'm going to tell them tonight. She says, would you like to stay and everything? And I said, well, it's your, Bob and whatever George Shapiro.
Shapiro, I thought it was Shapiro. Yeah.
Yeah, George Shapiro, and they were going to be there, and then another person, and I said, this is these are your buddies, these are your inside people.
Yeah.
I'll just let that be personal for you.
Yeah.
And I said, they can do a lot of less stuff now. This was almost 40 years, 40.
Yeah.
So things have changed. Every other day they go up 500% or something.
Oh yeah.
They're learning stuff about that. And so I tried to give him some hope and everything, and I said, I'll be praying for you, and he knows that's important to me. And he says, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Last time I saw him alive.
Jeez.
At the Improv.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I was born yet when Andy passed, but he's definitely somebody that like throughout my life I've always been like I came into him later, so to speak, because what year did he pass away? Was it late 70? No,
So it'd be early mid 80s.
Mid 80s, yeah. So I
Yeah.
might, yeah.
Yeah, I think the mid to the, yeah, something like that.
Iconic, you know what I mean? Still,
Uh,
still beloved and
and hated. Some people really didn't like him.
yeah, I love the fact that people didn't like him though. Like that, I think he did too. You know what I mean? I think
Yeah,
getting a rise out of people is what he
he
wanted.
wanted to see a reaction. He wanted to have you have a feeling.
Yeah,
He wanted you to feel something, whether it was good, bad, or indifferent. He just wanted, response.
which is
So,
very unique. Most
and
people want to be loved. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Andy just wanted a reaction, which was cool.
that was his love. And
Yeah.
it's he was a really great guy. I have something that I get when the Tony Clifton episode, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. He was going to come in and they told us Andy's not going to be here next week. There is going to be a character here. You might think it's Andy, but it's not Andy.
Yeah.
Get it?
Yeah.
And so we all came in, and there was this guy. And when we showed up in the morning, there was a guy on Monday, and he was there in a wig and with facial things that have changed his face, and he had been there for 3 to 4 hours getting in makeup and costume for the first rehearsal. This is his commitment to this character, Tony Clifton. So we were all this new guy, Tony Clifton. So, and it's not Andy, so we got that. And so Andy was a great guy. Tony Clifton was just an ass.
Yeah.
And pretty untalented. And he came off that way, real big. Well, so on Wednesday evening, they decided they're going to have to do something because this guy is coming in and disturbing the rehearsals we are having. And Judd's getting pissed off, and Jeff and Tony are over there on the corner tapping their feet, looking like they're pissed,
Yeah.
stuff, So they're at a loss, and I'm just sitting there enjoying everything. This is fun. So he's gonna get fired. So we were there the next day, and they had that other person that was reading Tony's line. I mean, Andy's lines, Clifton's lines, and so he comes in and he disturbs the rehearsal that's going, and he comes in with 3 hookers, and they look very nice, and these are hookers that he likes to have on a set. So he came in, he pulled up a chair, and he started talking and doing this stuff. And so Ed Weinberger says, "That's it, you're fired. You're gonna just fire me." He said, "You can't fire me. You don't have any." And it's a big thing. They're pushing and shoving and all this other stuff. And a couple of guards come from the studio guards coming in and take Andy, and he's there scuffling and tussling. But before all this started to happen, Andy came and gave us all a gift, and they were little mechanical toys like children play with, ages 4 to 7.
Yeah.
And it's got like a dachshund. I got a little dachshund, and he had batteries in him, and we were all on the floor playing with this when all this is going on, and he's having this fight with Ed Weinberger, and it's a shoving match and everything. And so they finally hustled him off the stage. Well, that was the end of Tony Clifton.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was there, and I witnessed the whole thing. And Tony Danza had a Super 8 camera and shot it all, just like a stooge shooting stuff. Yeah. But he didn't have it. I don't think he got it developed, and I think he lost it. He's not on. I don't know whether on purpose or not. I don't think he would have lost it on purpose, but but that was gone. So anyhow, it was on film, but it was a great thing. And I thought it would be so cool. Wouldn't it be great if he could come in and do another character that is not him, and it would be successful on a series? That would have been a first.
Yeah.
So I saw that as a possibility that could be really good, for him.
Do you think that was Andy as Tony Clifton, or do you think it was Zamuda as Clifton?
I think it was Andy.
Yeah.
And I think later Zamuda also did it.
Yeah.
And so but I don't know. I'm not sure which one I saw.
And when he would have like the fights on set and stuff like that, do you think that was strictly like, do you think Andy was the only one in on it? Or do you think some of the producers of the show knew what was going on?
They knew what was going on.
Okay.
They knew that. I think they knew. I think they knew. They knew. Yeah,
Yeah.
He planned things.
Yeah.
That you wouldn't think had been planned. That's what these things that happened were happenings. These happened in New York in the 60s, and Bob Zamuda was working with one of the best writers in New York City. I can't think of his name right now, but he would put on these things and run it to the nth degree and have the cops come in, and then he had a letter from the mayor, so and so is getting, he is allowed to, he is part of the culture of New York City. And so he had these things that would happen that were unusual and kind of disturbing sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
I always assumed Zamuda and even Andy is Clifton. Whenever Tony Clifton came out there, had to because he would get so crazy and like treat people like crap that you would assume somebody would have beaten him up if it was like real. You know what I mean?
yeah, 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 yeah. Because see, the makeup, while it was excellent, you could tell, that's a guy in makeup,
Yeah,
changed his face and looks and stuff.
yeah.
But it was a great time. I
Oh
enjoyed
yeah.
that so much. It was a good thing to be on that. The other thing that I really enjoyed, I had about 2.5 or 3 months on the show that was called Forever Fernwood, and it was called Forever Fernwood, and it was about that time, and I was in it. It was like Louise Lasser without Mary Hartman in it.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what it was. It was all the same cast except Louise wasn't there.
Yeah.
She had signed off. So I got on the show then, and I was brought on, and I was to play the love interest and of Deborah Lee Scott, who played her sister,
Yeah.
younger sister, Louise Lasser's younger sister. So I was dating her, and my character was Jeffrey DeVito, who was a character that was a good guy, but he's a member of a mafia family. So he's a good guy. So
Yeah.
he was like not a good mafia guy, but he was a nice guy, but tried to be a mafia guy. He
Yeah.
dressed that great lime green suit.
I love it.
I wore that for 3 months. So anyhow, and I worked with Deborah Lee Scott closely, and Deborah Lee Scott and I had dated long before she dated Ringo, but
Yeah.
she and I got for several months, and then I'd been out of town, and she was out of town, and we lost track. But I auditioned with her, and she says, "I hope you get this," and I did, and so it was it was a great show. I loved being on that because I got to work with Dabney Coleman.
Oh yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
you remember Dabney Coleman? He was a great guy. He played Merle Jeter on that show as the mayor of that town that Mary Hartman was located in.
Yeah. You were in Murphy's Law as well, right? With Charles Bronson.
That's right. He stole my helicopter.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
was
I had one line with him, and he did a good job.
yeah. He seems like another dude that's pretty like a sweetheart guy. Is that true to say or
Well, I tell
Bronson?
you,
Yeah.
he did. He seemed to be off by himself a lot,
Yeah.
and I think that that's kind of what he likes, you know, little separation.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I had this line, and I said, uh, the helicopter's starting to take off, and I say, hey, you can't take off. You're not authorized. You got to sign this form. And he says, this is my authorization,
Yeah.
you know, and he pointed right at me. And I think they use this in the trailers. Sometimes they shoot stuff that uses the trailers, and it doesn't make it fully into the movie.
Yeah.
So, but that's what happened with that. So he stole my helicopter. It only took about 6 hours. So
There you go. You know.
I got paid.
That's all that matters, you know what I'm saying? The jumping off of Man on the Moon, they had Norm Macdonald play the Kramer, what's his real name?
Oh, Michael Richards.
Michael Richards, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So he played, yeah. But to spring off of that, I know you worked on the Norm show.
Oh, yes. Uh-huh. Yes. Yes.
You got any good stories about working with Norm Macdonald? Rest in peace.
Norm was a really good guy.
Yeah.
Liked him a lot. It's from Saturday Night Live. It's
Oh
great.
yeah.
And so, yes, he was a fun guy. He liked to shoot basketball, and he liked to gamble.
Oh
and
yeah.
do that kind of stuff. And he was on there with Artie Lang.
Lang, yeah.
And he was there. So Artie was there, and he was nice. He was laid back and chilling, and that was good. And so yeah, I had four different roles on that show, and I was kind of a one man repertory.
Yeah.
But I did enjoy doing that.
Artie Lang tells a story about the Norm's gambling where Norm like threw $30,000 into the ocean and he was like, "Why'd you do that?" He's like, "I'm just gonna spend it on gambling." Very cool. Yeah, Artie's like super cool. I love them both. We still got Artie. Artie's super quick. He's one of the quickest comedians out there and just raw edginess. Yeah, Norm, it was very sad, Norm, I'm sure Norm has his downtime, of course. He doesn't assume to always be on like Andy is, you know what I mean? But it was very sad, but we lost Norm too, that was very sad.
Yeah, yeah, he was a good guy. I liked him. He's a good actor,
Yeah,
and I liked what he did. He's
yeah,
a very giving kind of guy, and re- that's what I recall of him.
yeah.
Being on the set and stuff, he was a good guy.
Yeah, I like him. And they're in Dirty Work together too, with him and Artie. That's a fun one.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Directed by Bob Saget. Very nice.
Yeah.
Oh,
He directed that, yeah. Alex, you gonna say something?
Yeah, I was going to say something. You were also in There Will Be Blood, and I'm a big
Oh,
Daniel Day-Lewis fan. Love that movie. How was that experience working with him and being in that scene, working with him?
yeah, he's a good kid. I taught him a few tricks. No, I had a really good 2 or 3 days on that set, and I really enjoyed myself. It was Paul Thomas Anderson.
Hell yeah. Yeah.
That man is like a really bright genius kind of guy. And
Yeah.
he's able to take a normal, ordinary thing and do it, shoot it to where it's like revealing. He's really, he really is good, really, really
Yeah.
a good one. And I liked working there for him. He was good. We shot it up north of L.A. and on a mountaintop out of there near the Vasquez Rock, where it's a big giant mountain outcropping. I don't know if it's a mountain or a giant hill, but it's very picturesque. And we shot it up there, and it was really, really interesting. I I had one line in that scene, and so he is the. It was the scene where he's trying to buy land in California to drill on, and I'm a rancher there, and so he gives his speech to me and everything. So, and I listen. That's all I do is I listen, and I have one line, uh, and 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 uh, not Paul Thomas Anderson, but Daniel Day-Lewis is a guy that likes to try to act, be in character on
Oh,
the
yeah.
set all the time. So
Yeah.
he was doing that, and that was pretty nice. I thought that was good. And so I talked to him when he was not acting, and he was fine. And but anyhow, we got to the scene here, and he has like the bulk of the dialogue, and I'm just listening with my lady that played my wife, and so we're listening, and and uh, all- and all of a sudden I realized that he's saying his dialogue, and he's just not even looking at me. He's looking at the lady that's playing my wife. So after doing a few takes like that, I decided to do something of my own. And that is just notice him looking at my wife when he's saying all these things. So I'm listening to him and everything. That's all I did.
Yeah.
You know, that's all I did.
Yeah.
And when I did that, Paul Thomas Anderson was sitting on the camera and he started laughing. They got a jiggle. So they had to redo it. So I just went back to my old way of just listening to him do it because I wanted him to know I knew how to do, I knew stuff, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can just sit there and listen, or I can pay attention to what's going on. You're looking at my wife and you're saying all this stuff. What am I doing here? You know. So I threw one of those things in there, but it didn't get in the final take, obviously. But they got a good feeling about what I felt.
yeah. So
Yeah.
when Daniel Day-Lewis stays in character, like in between takes, when there's the downtime, is he just quiet to himself, or is he like in character communicating with people?
He uh, he's kind of the first way you said. He
Okay.
commits to it, and then he doesn't go anywhere with it.
Yeah.
He's just there. If you're a character and you're just standing there,
Yeah.
then you just stand there and
Yeah.
think what you're try to think the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Film records thought,
For sure.
and the
Yeah.
control it also establishes whether you can see it or not.
Yeah.
You know.
And a huge fan. Both of us are huge fans of Paul Thomas Anderson.
Oh yes.
One of the greatest filmmakers going right now.
Oh yeah.
Legendary. Can you give us like an inside look at kind of like his process? Like, is he a, like I said before, are they hands-on set, or is it all pre-production and then you bring you know, how's he kind of direct?
He encourages things. He's try this, try that, try that. He didn't do any of that with me, but I just saw him like see him in rehearsals, and then he talks, and then things happen. It
Mm,
doesn't seem to be
right.
none of this stuff. It's just he's thinking of right here.
Yeah.
He's the camera, you know,
Yeah.
and he's got to put it in that plane because it's an area of thought.
Yeah. Yeah, man. There Will Be Blood is such a masterpiece. Do you remember your thoughts on it the first time you seen it all fully put together?
There will be blood. Oh golly, yeah. I thought it as a film. It was really great. I mean,
Yeah.
I love the stuff. See, I'm a a citizen of the southwest of the country. Being in West Texas and then California and New Mexico, Nevada, Arizona, some New Mexico. I know, so I know that part of the country really, really well. And so whenever they were shooting it back in West Texas, there were some things that were in West Texas that they didn't have West Texas accents. Of course, that was like a century ago, not a century.
Yeah.
Well, half a century ago. Well, almost a century ago. So yeah, it was very different. Well, listen, I've really enjoyed myself talking to you guys,
Like,
Alexander and Matthew. Just so grateful for you guys, and I'm just really glad to meet you. And if you ever want to do another one of these and finish up some loose ends,
oh,
let
would
me
love to
know.
have you. Yeah, would love to have
Yeah,
you
we
back.
definitely.
You know what I mean?
Okay, just give me a call. Let me know. I'll do it.
All right, Randy, thank you very much. Drive safe going where you're going.
Take
Have a
care.
good one.
Adios, amigo.
Adios.
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 Adios. He's finished. You know what I mean? To keep with the There Will Be Blood theme. Randy's super cool, dude. Love Randy, great guy. Like I said, Randy on my radar heavy with Taxi. As I look over there, I'm looking at the 3 seasons of Taxi that I have on DVD from I've had them for 20 years or so. Always throw it on. Taxi, great show. Love his character in it. Um, and now the streaming's here. It's just a click away. I watch it a lot. My most watched movie shows, Taxi, Cheers, and I mean, All in the Family's always in the mix, dude. But um, Taxi and Cheers are like the two those are my go-to shows that like, like I said, I watch the show. I probably watch the shows each year. Like we've talked about this before with Cheers. Like Cheers is a show that since for 20 years I've watched the whole series at least once a year. Same thing with Taxi. Taxi's a little shorter of a run. You know what I mean? I think it's 3 or 4 seasons. Um, but I watch it all the time. I watched it last night before going to bed. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things that I love it. I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's one of those great American worldwide, just the great sitcoms. You know what I mean? Three's Company. As I look over there, there's so many cool shows. But having Randy on, he was a lot of fun, man. He gave us a lot of time too. I was getting ready to call it because we had him for like 2 hours, maybe more. And so him ending it is fine because we get another episode out of it because he ended it. That's how it goes. Uh, but yeah, much appreciation to Randy. Give thanks to the wife too because she helped set this up, and just great people over there. What do you think, Alex?
Oh, I had a lot of fun. Luckily, I was able to connect with him, and yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of Taxi. I love it, and it was great talking to Randy about inside baseball with like dealing with Andy Kaufman, and then of course being brought back and being part of the Man on the Moon with Jim, and then There Will Be Blood. You got the Mechanic. I mean, he's done a lot of fun stuff, and I mean, it's always fun talking to someone who's being in the industry, who's jumped around from TV to movies and all that, and worked with a lot of great people that we haven't met and hopefully we'll meet in the future.
Oh yeah.
But it's always fun talking and listening to their stories and their experiences. And one thing about this podcast that we always learn is that everyone's experience is different. So, and like you said, you got bad luck, you got good luck. And you never know what's going to hit, and that's kind of like how the industry is. You go in and you might be on for the first season of a great series, and then unfortunately let go because the higher ups decide to move you out. But then you end up in like a Paul Thomas Anderson film, down the line. You never know where you're going to end up.
Yeah. Was it the man that comes to dinner? Wasn't that a play that you were in school?
Yeah, yeah.
I almost brought that up. I almost brought that up, but I didn't want to be wrong.
I was tempted to make a comment, but I wasn't going to. I mean, the thing is that I know the character that he played. If I remember correctly, the character he played was actually the male, like the good-looking male lead that kind of is. Because the whole thing about A Man Who Came to Dinner is you have this big, pompous, full of himself, personality, Whiteside, who ends up hurting himself and being stuck at this house, like this Midwestern house, and he's bringing all his Hollywood friends and all that, and upheave this entire, very Midwestern, family.
Yeah.
And the thing is, he has an assistant, and one of the big things is the assistant gets interested in the newspaper man who is in the small town.
Yeah.
And Whiteside doesn't want this. It's not that he has any like romantic feelings for her or even any real feelings, but he's the kind of guy who like he kind of thinks she's my assistant, she's my property. So I don't want this guy to take away her because she makes my life easy. So he tries to put a wedge in that kind of relationship.
Yeah.
And actually, the scene he's talking about is Whiteside convinces one of his female starlets, a very attractive, influential, Hollywood actress, to take that guy out on a date and get him drunk to try to make him look like, not a great suitor for his assistant. So when he comes in and he's, acting, being drunk, that's him trying to get being, manipulated by Whiteside. So yeah, a little insight. I mean, if you wanted to know more about that play.
We also chatted with Peter Jason, I think, rest in peace, about he did the play as well.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun play. The play was written by two guys who were friends with the Marx Brothers, and one of the characters in the play is called Banjo, who's actually based off of Harpo Marx.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I dig that. I get down with that. Steve Stolier, shout out. You know what I mean? A lot of fun. This is a lot of fun, man. You know what I mean? Journey. Great memory on Randy, man. He knew he had a lot of info, and I hope to have him back on. And we kind of briefly glazed over, we got a few questions out of all the main projects we wanted to talk about, and we came in right on there. Like There Will Be Blood was the last one that I really wanted to kind of touch base on. There's more to dip into, but when you get a guest, you don't want to just be like 1, 2, 3, like let's do every single thing you've ever done. We kind of go through and we pick and choose, the films and projects to talk about. You know what I mean? But I'd love to have Randy back on. I think it's safe to say Randy's a pal now. We're Randy about Randy. Shout out to the women, the powerful women in this world, the ladies. Last couple interviews we've done, we're done because of very powerful and generous ladies helping us hook these up.
Yeah, and we wanted to shout out to Shelley, his wife, who helped put this together, and it was great. It was a lot of fun talking to Randy about his career, about his experiences, and just go down the rabbit hole, so to speak.
It was interesting that like the same situation, the same kind of approach that he took with getting the role in Midnight Cowboy was like the same thing that kind of put over Christopher Lloyd's Reverend Jim in Taxi. I thought that was an interesting type deal where they lived it. They came into it already in character and did it. It's funny because when he was talking about how he didn't know any drunk folks and played a drunk kid, a drunk guy in the play, all I could think of was Reverend Jim. Maybe I just had Taxi on my mind, but his drunk, drug fueled life, that character of just being in space, out of space.
Well, I just have to jump in. Okay, you do know who made Reverend Jim that drug induced poor sap he was. You know who it was, right?
Christopher Lloyd?
No. The character. Who created Reverend Jim? Who was the one
who was the inspiration?
Reverend Jim on that path of destruction?
Kaufman? I don't know.
Tom Hanks.
Oh, really? Do tell.
Yeah. Come on, dude. You've seen Taxi how many times? You don't know the story.
Some spacing at this point.
There's an episode where it does a backstory of Reverend Jim, and you go back to
yeah. It's a dark.
His roommate was played by Tom Hanks, who was the partier, the fun guy.
Yeah,
Reverend Jim was all straight like, I got to study. I
forgot about that.
And then of course, Tom Hanks gets him down the road, then made him into Reverend Jim. So if you watch Taxi and you're like, how did Reverend Jim become Reverend Jim? You can thank only one guy, a bosom buddy of ours, Mr. Tom Hanks.
There's another show, I think it might be Family Ties.
Yeah.
Where Tom Hanks comes in as like the cousin or something like that. And
I think he's the brother. I think he's the brother of pretty much the uncle to Michael J. Fox.
Yeah.
And he's dealing with alcoholism.
It's like a dark episode, dude. Yeah. So maybe Tom Hanks knows about being an alcoholic too much, I guess. I don't know. We'll talk to him. He's coming on the show in a couple months. But yeah, very cool. And Tom Hanks, of course, was just in the I Like Me doc. You know what I mean? Shout out to go peep out that episode we did on it on John Candy, the man. We got that. He pulled that Robin Williams story out of his hat. You weren't expecting that, were you?
No, no. I mean, that was great. I mean, it's one of those things that, yeah. I mean, you kind of I look at Hollywood like a college, okay? In
For
the
sure.
fact that if you get in there, even if you are not like George Clooney or, The Rock,
Yeah.
you're going to end up running into a lot of people that you might not think. I mean, a lot of big stars, smaller stars, and sometimes you end up working with a small star before he becomes huge. The fact is that when you Hollywood is a small community in retrospect. So everyone ends up rubbing elbows with almost everyone else.
It's like an apartment building.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or Hotel Hollywood. You know what I mean? I'm finished. All right, cool beans. Do you want to say anything else before we pop on out of here?
No, I mean I'm all good. I had a lot of fun. Thank to Shelly and Randy for being Shelly to putting this together and Randy being part of the show. It was a lot of fun having them on.
Yeah, much love and respect to both of them. So with that being said, we hope you enjoyed this episode. We also hope you're on that Patreon at Boombastic Streaming. And we're hoping to sit down with Randy again in the future, maybe next year or this year, or we'll figure it out. We'll figure out the deal, the right timing. You know what I'm saying? And do it big. Randy was a lot of fun. And with that being said, we hope you all enjoyed. So everybody out there listening and watching, we'll catch y'all on the next episode of the Boombastic Cast.
Peace.
Peace. I'm finished.